One of my favorite inspiring artists is Paul McCartney. And one of the best things, the older I get, that I admire about him is his self-permission. Because his whole life, people have been telling him, you're too young, you're just a kid, you don't know anything. And young kids don't get signed to record labels necessarily, and they don't necessarily become famous or whatever. And then because the four Beatles were young guys, all the record labels thought that was a formula, so that now they got to find the next four guys. And, they're missing out. There's never a formula. So I remember having a great uncle who said to me when I was first starting to learn how to play guitar and singing and everything at the same time, he said, well, you're going to have to decide now. Are you a singer or are you a guitar player? And it was like, what? All my favorite artists sing and play. Paul Simon, Stevie Wonder, Paul McCartney, Carly Simon. It just like goes on and on and on. Fleetwood Mac. It's like, I'm going to play and sing. Hello. And I can remember the first time someone called me a producer. I was like, ooh, I'm not worthy. I'm not a producer yet. That kind of a thing. But I was producing music. I was making records. I was a producer, So when you're creating something out of nothing, like that song didn't exist before, and now it exists. And now there's a recording to prove it. It's not just something in your head and you can hear all the parts at the same time. All those parts that you've been dreaming about, you've arranged and you've recorded it. That's freaking awesome. That's part of the self-permission. And expanding that, I want to play drums. I want to play bass. I remember somebody saying, Wayne Dyer wrote a book? Who said he could write? And it's like, he did, right? Who said you can be an artist? Who said you can be an engineer? Who said you could be a producer or an arranger or a mastering engineer? You get to say it. You get to define who you are and what you do and what you spend your time doing. And you learn and you get better at it all. It's amazing. You can do anything. I just love that. And so then here's Paul pushing 30. They're not even 30 when the Beatles are breaking up, all the four Beatles. And they're saying, what are you going to do now? Or don't you think you're past it? They defined that the young people could be in a band and do the thing as a band in 1964. And now that they're older, they're saying you can't be that anymore. They're like, well, we'll be our 30-year-old version of it. And I remember when that first started happening in the 70s and they were giving the Beatles guff for wanting to make solo albums. I was like, why would they do that? We have old blues singers. We have old jazz singers. We have old classical musicians. Why can't we have old rock and rollers? Well, then finally we got older rock and rollers because those were the first guys. Jagger and McCartney and all these guys, they're still making music, Ringo. It's great. It's great that they're showing us the path of how it's done. This is how you can do it, You can stay young, you can love music, you can keep rocking, and why not? Keep doing it because you love it. That's all Paul's answer ever was. I never did it for the money, he said. I always did it because I loved it, So crazy. So even now, in his 80s, they're like, don't you think you should stop? And he's like, I still love it. I love that about him.